Let me ask you something. What if the best chapter of your life hasn't been written yet? What if everything you've experienced, every scar, every triumph, every hard lesson was simply preparing you for something greater than anything you've lived so far? Because here's what nobody tells you about turning 60. It's not an ending, it's an invitation. And today, we're going to talk about how to answer it.
Welcome! If you're watching this, you're either at a crossroads or you're standing on the edge of something you can't quite name yet. Maybe the kids have grown and moved on. Maybe you've retired or are thinking about it. Maybe you woke up one morning and asked yourself, "Is this it?" That question isn't a sign of failure. That question is a sign that you're awake. And being awake is exactly where transformation begins.
Let's start with something honest. Society has done a terrible job of preparing us for life after 60. We spend decades being told to hustle, to build, to achieve, and then one day the alarm doesn't go off and nobody hands you a manual for what comes next. The silence can feel deafening, and in that silence, a lot of people mistake stillness for stagnation. They start believing that their most meaningful contributions are behind them. They start shrinking. And I want you to understand something deeply today. That story is a lie. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps and went on to write one of the most powerful books ever put to paper, said that the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. He didn't say that freedom belonged only to the young. Purpose is not a young person's game. If anything, purpose becomes more accessible, more clear, and more deeply felt when you've lived long enough to know what actually matters.
So, how do you find it? How do you find purpose after 60 when the structures that used to define you, your career, your role as a parent, your social identity, have shifted or faded?
The first thing I want you to do is stop looking for purpose as if it's something buried in the ground and you just need the right shovel. Purpose isn't found, it's built. It emerges from action. It comes to you when you start moving, experimenting, giving, creating, connecting. The people who spend years waiting to feel purposeful before they do anything are the ones who end up looking back with regret. You don't wait for the feeling to arrive. You do the thing, and the feeling follows. Start by asking yourself a different question. Instead of, "What is my purpose?" ask yourself, "What breaks my heart?" Ask yourself, "What do I find myself talking about with fire in my voice?" Ask yourself, "What would I do every day for free because it fills me rather than empties me?" These questions cut through the noise. They get you past the ego, past the need to perform or impress, and straight into the heart of what you actually care about. Because here's something beautiful about being 60 or older. You are finally free. Free from the opinions of people who never really understood you anyway. Free from the pressure to climb a ladder that was never yours to begin with. Free from the exhausting performance of building a life that looks good from the outside. You've earned the extraordinary luxury of being completely, unapologetically yourself. Very few people in the history of human civilization got to live long enough to reach this kind of freedom. Don't waste it. Now, let's talk about the fear, because it's real, and we're not going to pretend it isn't. Starting something new at 60, 65, 70, that takes courage. The voice in your head might say you're too old, that the world isn't interested in what you have to offer, that it's too late to matter. That voice is not wisdom. That voice is fear dressed up in practical clothing. And fear, for all its noise, is a terrible life advisor. Consider this. Julia Child didn't publish her first cookbook until she was 49. Grandma Moses didn't start painting seriously until she was 78. Nelson Mandela became the president of South Africa at 75. These aren't feel-good trivia facts. They are proof that the timeline you've been given is a fiction. Your most impactful work, your deepest relationships, your greatest contributions, they may still be ahead of you. The only thing standing between you and that life is the belief that the clock has run out. Here's a practical step I want you to take this week. Sit down with a blank piece of paper and write down everything you know how to do. Everything. Cook extraordinary meals, raise difficult children, navigate a marriage through decades of change, survive grief, build a business, fix a car engine, teach a classroom full of restless teenagers, counsel a friend through the darkest night of their life. You have accumulated an arsenal of skills, wisdom, and experience that younger generations are desperately hungry for. The world doesn't need you to become someone new. The world needs you to share who you already are. Mentorship is one of the most profound expressions of purpose available to you right now. Not the formal, corporate kind, the real, human, sitting across the table kind. There are young people in your community, your family, your neighborhood who are struggling with challenges you've already survived. Your presence in their lives isn't a favor to them, it's a gift to yourself, because meaning is most powerfully experienced when we give it away. Service is another doorway. Volunteering, teaching, advocacy, community organizing. These aren't consolation prizes for people who have run out of other options. They are among the highest callings a human being can answer. Research consistently shows that people who engage in meaningful service live longer, experience less depression, maintain sharper cognitive function, and report higher levels of life satisfaction. Purpose isn't just spiritually nourishing, it is physically protective. Finding your reason to get up in the morning might literally be adding years to your life. I also want to speak to the grief that sometimes lives underneath this conversation. Some of you are navigating this question of purpose while also carrying the weight of loss, a partner, a friend, a version of yourself that no longer exists. That grief deserves to be honored, not rushed through. But grief and purpose are not enemies. In fact, for many people, loss becomes the very thing that clarifies what matters most. The people who have lost the most sometimes become the most committed to living with intention because they understand in their bones what everyone else is still trying to comprehend intellectually, that time is precious and how we spend it is everything. Let me leave you with one more thought before we close. Psychologist Erik Erikson, who spent his career studying human development across the lifespan, identified a stage he called generativity, the deep human drive to contribute something that will outlast us, to plant trees under whose shade we will never sit. He believed this stage, which most fully develops in midlife and beyond, is one of the most powerful sources of meaning available to human beings. And he was right. When we stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I give? What can I leave? What can I build that will matter after I'm gone?" that is when we touch something timeless. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not irrelevant, invisible, or past your prime. You are standing at the beginning of the most authentic, intentional, and potentially impactful season of your entire life. The only requirement is that you show up for it, that you choose every single day to lean toward life rather than away from it. That you take one small step, then another, not toward some distant destination called purpose, but into the daily practice of living as if your presence matters. Because it does. Go make something. Give something. Say the thing you've been holding back. Call the person you've been thinking about. Start the project that scares you. Take the class, plant the garden, write the book, tell your story. Someone, somewhere, is waiting to hear it.
Thank you so much for watching today. If this video reached something in you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs to hear it, because you probably know someone who does. Leave a comment below telling me one thing you're going to do this week to move toward a more purposeful life. Your answer might be exactly the encouragement another person in this community needs to take their own first step. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.